if you want to become a stronger climber, you should spray wall. Here's why. A spray wall is a piece of two-dimensional wall with a cluster of holds on. Now these holds have no set rule or guidelines. They could be flat, slopey, crimpy, juggy, and holds can also be on top of hose. Not to mention, these spray walls also have the availability to have big voluminous holes on top of them. And with these big voluminous holes, you could put even more holes on top of it. All in all, what this basically just means is that a spray wall has a very large variety of holes on it, and with a large variety of holes comes a large variety of climbing. Most spray walls, probably set spray walls, will be constructed at approximately 40 degrees or deeper. Now what that 40 degree or deeper does is it creates a type of climbing that's very physical, very fingery. It also forces your feet to have to constantly stay onto the wall so that you're building a good amount of tension throughout the body. Overall, spray wall climbing is a very physical form of climbing. So some of the big advantages of spray wall climbing is you can sit at one spot, be presented with all these holes, and create an unlimited array of climbing. So you have unlimited variety of climbs from one nice compact wall. Because spray walls are typically not built 10,000 feet tall, anytime you fall, it'll be a relatively safe fall, and not to mention the angle of the wall as well will help push you closer to the ground so that when you fall, it's never that serious. Because the spray walls, when they're set, will typically stay up for anywhere between 2 to 3 years, the longevity of a potentially hard project will never fade away, and it becomes a good benchmark for you to measure yourself against. Unlike with a traditional systems board, like a moon board or tension board, which are excellent in their own right, a spray wall has the flexibility of being reset every so couple of years so that you get new climbs. Therefore, it never gets dull or boring, and each spray wall by itself is very uniquely its own. Because there are no rules when setting a spray wall, you have the ability to put up plastic holes, which are typically normal, good plastic holes, and you have the ability to put on wooden holes. Therefore, when your skin is totally cooked, you could just climb on the wooden holes to help preserve skin. Because spray walls aren't limited by the confines of normal rules, you're allowed to use any type of thing as a hold. For example, this little torpedo escape hold is now a hold, even though it's typically not made for a hold. This circle thing, I'm not even so sure what it is now a slopey pinch type thing that has been made into a hold. And if you're into woodworking, you can go ahead and create your own custom holes with any variation of form or shape. This one was a custom made one. And check out this gnarly little pinch that was also custom made. This means that spray walls have a very large variety of holes to work your muscles in all types of shapes and fashion. And some spray walls, they even have real rock on them. This one does not. The spray wall has been around for such a long time and is such an excellent training tool that almost all great to adequate climbers will use it in their training almost religiously. That is because it is a very physical form of climbing. Due to the cut loose moves, you're putting a lot of pressure on your fingers. But because of all of that, it's also very dangerous for newer climbers. So if you're just completely new to climbing, I recommend don't spray wall. But if you've been at it for a little bit and you really want to up your game, here's how we will go about it. Now, I can't speak for all spray walls, but the ones I have touched will typically have some form of good hose. When you're new to spray walling, you especially just want to use the good hose when climbing. It's just a lot easier and friendly on your fingers, and because the angle is so steep, it will still be very physical and finger intensive. If it's your first time spray walling, you will immediately realize that the grading is very difficult. If you climb Gym V5, you might only be able to climb spray wall V2 or V1. But since this is a great training tool, you need to separate the grading. So you have your indoor commercial climbing grade, V5. Your spray wall climbing grade, V1, V2. and you just want to individually promote each one without trying to correlate them too much. As cool and awesome as Spraywall is, it does have some slight disadvantage. One of those disadvantages being that most spray walls are typically kind of short. Therefore, you're stuck working strong, powerful moves, but not so much any of that good endurance. Another disadvantage, or more like barrier entry, is because all these routes are non-color coordinated, typically, you will have to remember the problems in order for you to climb it without hitting all the other holes that aren't part of it. So it's a bit of a memory game. A final disadvantage of spray walls is because they're so overhanging and fingery, it's typically very hard to warm up on them. Therefore, before you hop onto a spray wall, you might want to do some commercial climbing or utilize one of these bad boys known as a hangboard, which is excellent for warming up and building finger strength. So you're finally ready to tackle the spray wall, but you just don't know how or what to climb. Let me introduce you to Stoke. On the Stoke app, there will be preset climbs by other climbers. Using those preset climbs, memorizing those holes, you can then go ahead and climb the route set by other people. You yourself can of course set your own holes, put it in the Stoke app as well. Now the way me and my roommate have decided to remember our climbs is just by taking a picture of the board. Once we have taken a picture of the board, we simply activate the edit mode where we go ahead and using the pencil tool, go ahead and circle the holes that are important. Red, finish, blue, everything else, green is the start hold. And doing it this way, we're able to memorize the climbs even though our board isn't completed yet. That's just how we go about it. Other boards will just have great memory or they print out pieces of paper. I got an iPad. So you've been climbing other people's problems for a while, but you're thinking to yourself that you want to set a problem to work your own strengths or weaknesses. But you have the current conundrum of, I don't know how to set a good problem. Let me give you some tips. Tip number one is, even though the spray wall has a plethora of holds and feet, you want to make sure that you're not overutilizing the feet. You just want to have enough feet. It's very common for newer climbers to set a problem with too many feet. Useless feet. You want to find 1 or 2 feet, the crucial feet that's essential for your problems, and simply stick with those. Typically when it comes to the spray wall, the least amount of feet, the better the climbing. A very simple way of setting that will help promote a limited amount of feet is known as feet follow hands. So for this problem that starts with a gray feet, blue jug, gray jug, and finishes on black jug, the way it will be done is we're gonna go left, right, and then we're gonna move our feet to where our hand was. Hence, feet follow hand, and then just finish off on the black jug. That way of setting really minimizes the amount of feet you use while making a very applicable style of climbing, especially for outdoors. Tip number 2 is you do not need to utilize the faux board. Even though some spray walls are wumbo size, not this one, you can simply have a problem that starts right here and ends right here. Remember that the spray wall is a training tool. If it's not helping you get stronger, adjust the route. Tip number 3, make it doable. If the movement is to go from this pink lovely jug to this white jug, but you just can't manage it, because this is a spray wall, I recommend going to a closer hold. Get accustomed to that movement first, and then start working your way out there. Get accustomed to the movement. Once your body's accustomed to the movement, you can then come right back down to the original move, and it will feel significantly more doable. Tip number 4 is break down the problem. Because on spray wall, the problems are very difficult, it might be a good idea to simply break it down to 2 halves or even 3 pieces. So from here, you can start from here, and once you get here, you could conclude that the problem is over, and that should feel like an achievement. And then for the second half, you can start where you left off and then go to the finish. That way, you're basically working 2 individual problems that's the part of the same one. Then once you've done 2 halves, you can come back and then link it into one full problem to complete the original line. Tip number 5 is friends. By climbing with friends, spray walling is a lot more enjoyable. They can set problems that tackle your weaknesses because they observe your climbing, and likewise you can set problems that tackle their weaknesses, and then it becomes a compounding interest of trying to make each other person better and better, and it just makes the whole experience funner. Tip number 6 is try hard. The spray wall is the most efficient and effective when you try as hard as you can, pulling hard, squeezing hard, yelling hard. Every attempt should be looked upon as a 1 rep max where you're going full effort. This also means when you spray wall, you should feel relatively fresh and new, especially when you first start off. Ultimately, spray wall is such a translatable form of climbing that will cover every other aspect of your climbing. By just spray walling, you will get stronger fingers, stronger overall climbing. Learn how to build tension. If you spray wall hard enough, good enough, with intentions on the feet enough, it will even translate over to your slab climbing, your roof climbing, your vert climbing, even back to your spray wall climbing. There is literally no downside besides the slight chance you might get injured if you're a little bit weak. So if you're a little bit weak, don't do this yet. Hangboard instead, much better.